Okay, picture this. You accidentally throw away a winning lottery ticket. Now imagine that ticket is worth almost $1 billion, and it's buried somewhere under a literal mountain of garbage. This isn't some movie plot. No, this is the very real and very painful story of a modern-day treasure hunt.
$950 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. That was the peak value of what we're talking about here. It's the kind of money that doesn't just change your life, it changes the life of an entire city. And the craziest part? It all started on one single forgotten piece of computer hardware.
So the big question, right? How on earth does someone misplace a fortune that massive? You'd think it has to be some kind of sophisticated heist, right? Or maybe a complex financial scheme that just went totally sideways? Something dramatic.
Yeah. Nope. Not even close. The truth is way more mundane and honestly, way more relatable. You just throw it in the trash. It was one of the most ordinary mistakes a person can make, and it led to one of the most extraordinary losses in history.
Okay, so to really get how this all went down, we've got to rewind the clock. We're going back to the dawn of cryptocurrency, a time when Bitcoin was this weird new idea that only a handful of tech nerds even knew about.
So here's the timeline. It all kicks off in 2009. A computer engineer in Wales, James Howells, starts mining Bitcoin on his laptop. He gathers up 8,000 of them. Back then, it was basically just a fun little experiment, worth next to nothing. Fast forward to 2013, he's cleaning out his office and, oops, the hard drive with all the keys gets tossed. That one simple act kicks off a grueling 12-year battle that finally comes to a head in a UK courtroom in January of 2025.
And this is where the scale of the mistake becomes just gut-punching. See, when the drive was tossed in 2013, the Bitcoin was worth about £500,000. I mean, that's a huge loss, don't get me wrong, but maybe not world-ending. But then, well, you know what happened with crypto. That value just exploded, soaring to over £600 million, almost $1 billion. All of it just sitting somewhere in a landfill.
So the treasure wasn't in some sunken pirate chest. Nope, it was buried under a literal mountain of other people's trash, which, you can imagine, presented a bit of a challenge.
Let's just try to wrap our heads around the numbers here. We're talking about the Docks Way landfill. The hard drive is probably in a specific 15,000-ton section of junk, buried maybe 15 meters deep. But here's the real kicker. That whole section is buried underneath another 200,000 tons of garbage. Finding a needle in a haystack is an understatement. This is like trying to find a needle in a mountain range made of haystacks.
And this is where you see the two sides just completely locked in a stalemate. On one side, you've got James Howells, and he's making this incredible offer. He's saying, look, I'll give the city 30% of what we find. I'll pay for the whole multi-million-dollar search, hire the best people on the planet, and I'll even clean up the land when we're done. But then you've got the Newport City Council, and they're looking at a completely different list. Their permit doesn't allow it, the environmental damage could be massive, it's dangerous, and maybe most importantly, there's no guarantee the drive is even there, let alone that it still works.
And look, the council has not budged, not 1 inch for over a decade. This quote from their spokesperson says it all, really. For them, the problems, the legal permit, the environment, the safety risks, those are all real, concrete issues. The billion-dollar treasure, to them, that's just a story. It's been a hard no from the start.
So what do you do when you hit a bureaucratic brick wall like that? Well, if you're James Howells, you don't just give up. You come back with a £10 million plan that is straight out of a science fiction movie.
I mean, this wasn't just let's get some shovels. The plan was to excavate the entire target zone, run all 15,000 tons of it down a conveyor belt, have an AI-powered scanner look for the drive, and then have human sorters double-check anything the AI flagged. And for security, get this, Boston Dynamics robotic dogs, patrolling a landfill. Seriously, you cannot make this stuff up.
And just in case you thought this was all some crazy fantasy, listen to who he brought on board. His team included a data recovery expert who helped get the data off the black box from the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. These are not amateurs. This was a dead, serious, extremely well-funded and, yeah, kind of insane proposal.
So you've got the money, you've got world-class experts, you've even got robot dogs. What could possibly stand in your way? Well, it turns out, two things you really can't argue with: physics and the law.
And this really gets to the heart of the technical problem. It's a classic case of hope versus reality. On one hand, Howells was super optimistic. He estimated an 80 to 90% chance of getting the Bitcoin back if they could just find the drive.
But on the other hand, you have the brutal, unforgiving reality of what a landfill does to electronics. We're talking more than a decade of chemical corrosion, being crushed under immense pressure, heat. The odds of the delicate disk inside surviving all that were not great.
But in the end, it wasn't the mountain of trash that stopped him. It wasn't even the laws of physics. It was this, the Control of Pollution Act from all the way back in 1974. A really dry old law with one crucial sentence. Anything you throw in a council dump legally belongs to the council. It's the ultimate finders keepers rule, and in this case, the council found it.
And that law, well, that was the final nail in the coffin. In his ruling in January 2025, the judge didn't pull any punches. He dismissed the whole thing, saying it had, quote, no realistic prospect of succeeding. Ouch. And just like that, a 12-year fight was over.
So, that's it then. The search is officially dead, the court has spoken, end of story, right? Well, not exactly.
I mean, seriously, put yourself in his shoes. What do you do next? You've just spent over a decade fighting for a life-changing fortune, and you've lost. What's your next move? Do you just give up?
You double down. Reportedly, James Howells is now founding a new company, Cianio Coin, to work on blockchain solutions. It's actually kind of incredible. After losing one of the biggest crypto fortunes in history, his belief in the technology that started this whole mess is completely unshaken.
Which really leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it? What's the crazier bet here? Digging through a mountain of garbage for a treasure that might not even exist anymore, or launching a brand new coin into the wild world of crypto? That's a question I'll leave with you.